Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It is a beautiful Monday morning, January 8th, 2024. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and keep you all updated. We had a really good discussion last week talking about trade lines. And so I'm on the chapmanloanprogram.org website, and we were talking about how we help participants add for free primary trade lines. What happened, there was a lot of interest and positive feedback, but I felt like that a number of you wanted more transparency. You wanted more insight into where these trade lines are coming from. So that tied very nicely in because on an annual basis, we go through and we reconcile, clean up, if you will, our preferred banking partners. So we're going to build off of this topic of how for free we help participants in the Startup Business Funding Package build primary trade lines. So again, very transparent. I have a list here, and they're not in any specific order. These are the banks, and I think they're all banks. I don't think there's any credit unions there. So these are banks that we have been able to confirm that they're willing to offer our participants free primary trade lines. And we've even been able to go confirm what their qualification requirements are. We've broke them into two categories, just general banks, and then who we're using primarily for the auto trade lines. So, for example, let me scan over here to Ally. So you see Ally Car Financing. So we have created a grid, if you will, of literally every one of those banks as far as what they do, where they report, and anything that we need to know as we're helping match clients. So let's use just as one example, Ally Car Financing. So first we might want to know, well, where do they report? Because there are three primary business credit reporting agencies: Dun & Bradstreet, Experian Business, and Equifax Business. Now, again, we're talking about business credit, not personal. So what's great about Ally is Ally reports to all three. So you shouldn't infer that all trade lines report to all three bureaus. That's not a correct assumption, but it is a fact that Ally does report to all three. So let's say that you refer in a client, they're in the Startup Business Funding Package. We're working through the checklist here. We realize that they don't have a strong business credit profile yet for their business. So we're going to visit with them about adding trade lines and assisting them for free in adding trade lines. We don't push, we don't sell cars, but we would encourage them to consider getting a business automobile for the obvious reasons, right? It's a bigger trade line because automobiles tend to be more expensive nowadays. And the larger the trade line, the more impact that it has to the credit profile. So then we might recommend financing that vehicle with Ally, which is in fact what they do. Personal guarantees are not required. So that's important to illustrate. We're not talking about personal loans. We're not talking about a personal auto financing relationship. We're talking about for a business. Now, you might come back and say, well, wait, that sounds too good to be true. Doesn't the business have to be 2 years old to qualify? Well, we actually go down, and I didn't have worked with each of these banks/lenders to identify what are their underwriting criteria. So that's part of the grid that we have. So there are requirements. Yeah, because it would be too good to be true to say, oh, okay, I can just go get my Escalade or my new Maybach through Ally, and I don't have to meet any criteria. That's not realistic. So what are the qualifications specifically? As of Friday, at close of business, our last contact with Ally, this is what they have reported to us. So we need to have an entity that's in good standing with the Secretary of State. Well, that's great news, right? Because that's one of the things that we do. Sorry, that went away. So there are requirements, and you can start to see how what we do is exactly a match to what it takes for businesses to access trade lines and access funding. We do need to have an EIN number with the IRS. Now, notice these words here, frankly, I copied and pasted them. So it's not like I crafted them to match what we do. It's not a coincidence, but it's not manipulation. This is specifically what Ally told us, and I cut and paste into this form, but you can see how well what we do matches to what lenders are looking for. So we also have to have an EIN number at the IRS. Well, great news. That's one of the things that we provide for free. We do need to have a unique business address. Great news. That's one of the things that we provide. Do need to have a D&B number. That's fine. That's one of the things that we do here. I know it's not detailed out, but that is one of the things that we do. Business license. So not all industries require a license. Like if you were to become a plumber, you would need to have a license to be a plumber because it's regulated. So don't get confused by this. Some industries don't require a license, and if there's not a license required, then you don't need it. But if it is a licensed industry, like to be heating and cooling, HVAC, then of course they would want to make sure that you're licensed. You do need to have a business bank account, which is what we do with clients after they get their EIN. They do want a bank reference, and that means they're going to contact your bank to confirm that you have the bank account. That's not a big deal. They allow for lease or loans of vehicles, and then of course you'd work with us. So this is the level of breakdown. It's just one. I didn't want to burden you with all of them, but we have the breakdown for all of these banking relationships. What does that mean? Well, we've refreshed the list. We know which banks are taking applications and what they're requiring. So when you're bringing clients in to the Startup Business Funding Package, we can do a really good job of helping them add trade lines. Now, what's interesting are some of the banks that are not on here. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't work or the clients couldn't work with banks that are not listed, but we don't have confirmation from them. So we're not going to put them on here. Like Wells Fargo, we do a lot with Wells Fargo, but they didn't meet the criteria to be on the list. So don't worry so much if these banks don't necessarily resonate with you. For instance, you might say, well, I've never heard of Nevada State Bank. Well, it doesn't really matter. Many of the banks work nationally, although some of them do have geographic specific requirements, but we'll take care of that reconciliation part. My goal today was just simply to give you an update and another layer of transparency in terms of our preferred bank partners. Some of you have asked for that, but this is not an all exclusive list. This does not mean that we couldn't use other lenders, but these are the ones that have officially acknowledged that they're taking applications, willing to work with us, and have provided their qualification requirements like Ally has. So with that, let's go back to kind of the main topic. So what is it that you and I do? You and I help small business owners create fundable businesses. So what we do is help them meet the fundability standards to be able to access funding. Well, what does that mean? What does that take? Well, that's exactly what's laid out here in bullets. We're going to provide them a unique commercial business address. We are hiring a new property manager, new commercial property manager. We're growing so quickly, which is a blessing. We have a job offer out that should be finalized. We're getting new office equipment, file cabinets, and all those things actually today. So we'll have a new property manager that will be managing this. But this is the first element of having a fundable business, is having a unique commercial address. Then we help the clients file with the Secretary of State. Now we cover the cost of that and the labor of doing that. As of January of this year, 2024, we've changed that process a bit. We now send the client a form, and the form is filled out, and it gives us some basic information. What specific name of the business does the client want the business to be? Do they want us to forward the mail? Do they just, it's kind of a checklist just so we can onboard the client in a more organized fashion. So if you start seeing that go out to your clients that you enroll, we'll copy you on that. And it's not meant to be a surprise, but it just helps us be more organized. So then once we have the address, which is step one, and file with the Secretary of State, then we help get the EIN, and then we need the bank account open for the reasons we've talked about. So these three elements really create the foundation of a credible business. Now, you might say, well, what if one of your clients or one of your prospective clients has this already or has some of this? Well, that's fine, right? So if they don't need some of these bullets, then we can skip some of those elements. And that's actually, when I mentioned that onboarding form a moment ago, it asks, do you want us to form a new entity for you? Again, we cover the cost. Or do you want to use your own business? Because it's fine if they want to use their own. But once we have these three elements, now we have the foundation of a business. Now we need to get it fundable, which are two elements, one of which is building the business creditworthiness of the entity. The second is having strong financials. And so we go in this order. This is, I know these are bullets, not numbers, but we do this first, that could say number one, and we do this second, that could say number two. So then, and it kind of builds on one another, so it makes sense why we go in that order. So here we're going to be adding, well, first we're going to go in and create optimized profiles with like Dun & Bradstreet and Experian Business to make sure that before we start adding trade lines, before we start going to any of these banks or auto finance companies, before we do that, we of course need to have these three elements, and we need to make sure that the business credit profile is built out. Then what we do is we start adding primary trade lines. As far as the amount of primary trade lines, again, we're not charging for that. In general, the more the better. In general, the larger the better. But it's up to the client. We create a unique plan per client based upon their wants, needs, and preferences. Like Mr. Harris, who's not on this morning, I think he was my last call at the end of the day, Friday. He's wanting to get an apartment complex. And so we're in seven figures, right, for that apartment complex. So one of his first trade lines is going to be a real estate trade line to buy that apartment complex. So again, so we're not saying everyone should go buy an apartment complex. We're saying we're working with the client based on their preferences. This bullet here is great because we're literally transferring over 10,000, but the point more so is that we're building out the balance sheet and making sure that we have collateral in place for funding. Then we go to funding, and funding can be from the Chapman Fund or many other places. It could be 250,000 or it could be a lot more. Again, it comes down to what the client wants. I don't think what you and I should be doing is trying to get people to take on more funding than they need, but we do want to make sure they get all the funding that they do need to start to grow, to reach their potential. So who has questions on what we do, which that was just kind of a rehash, or on the 2024 banking updates? So you can type your questions, comments, concerns into the Q&A of Zoom. It's kind of like a chat box. Anyone have questions, comments, concerns? So I guess what Sarah's asking is we work with each client. So once you bring the client in as a distribution partner, you bring the client in, you would normally get them under contract, which we've provided you an editable template, and then you've collected from them either the down payment if they're using the buy now, pay later option, or you've collected the full upfront payment. You keep half, send us half, we do all the work. So when I share with you all this information, I want to be transparent. I want you to see the value of what we do, but don't infer that we're trying to train you to go do this. That would require a lot more time and effort and probably not what you're best suited to. You're best suited, I would think, to go out and educate. So don't confuse. You might say, well, I don't know how to contact Nevada State Bank. Well, you don't need to, right? You just need to know that Nevada State Bank is one of many different banks that's part of our preferred partners for 2024, and will work with the clients to match them to the right type of trade line, not your burden. Okay, so we got some good questions coming in. Trevor asked how long to get into the car. So we'll go back over to Ally. Now, we just got ours through Mercedes-Benz Financial. It took, I would say, 90 minutes, Trevor, because they had to fuel it up. Yeah, well, let's just say 2 hours. Trevor's asking how long to get the company car. We'll go with 2 hours would probably be the norm. Good question. David asked, can we move personal vehicles to business? Yes. Yeah. And we've had a number of folks request that. That's not the norm, but we certainly can help facilitate that. And that might be advantageous because if the client already has a vehicle, but they'd rather it be in the business name. So now we need to change over the title and the financing. So it's not a gamesmanship. We're technically moving the asset from being a personal asset to a business asset. But yes, that is fine. Bevan's asking about the Opportunity Fund. So that's a good point. So we'll scroll down here. So any of you who are not distribution partners, you might want to consider doing so. So that way that you're paid to teach and assist others. And the link to do so is this bottom link. So grant resources and the bottom link here. So Bevan, yes, you're welcome to come enroll and be part of our distribution network. We're in the process of putting together a team of state directors where we have one director in each state. So if you're interested in that, you would still start with this step, and then we could visit with you afterwards if you're ready and interested for a leadership role. I guess Bevan's question was a little bit deeper. What about the income? He's asking about taxation. So I'm not a tax accountant nor a tax attorney, but here's the layman's perspective, Bevan, that as you make money, you're going to put that money into your business bank account, and on an annual basis, you're going to file a tax return. Businesses are not taxed on income. Businesses are taxed on profit. Now, if you don't want to be taxed on profit, you can actually go through this process and we can set you up as a nonprofit, and then you wouldn't have any tax liability. Thank you, Bevan, for that question. Next question is, do people have to live in the United States? No, they can be anywhere in the world, so it's not geographically restricted. Ernestina says, if you're interested, I guess it's a question. If you're interested to buy the car through business, what do you need to do now? Well, Ernestina, I don't know offhand, but first I would ask, are you a participant in the startup package? If not, there's a two-step process. Can't highlight there. Two-step process to participate if you've not already. Or you could go to one of our distribution partners, and we have 428 of them on this morning. So we have a whole lot of people that would love to help you get enrolled. Ernestina, I know Audrey would love to help you, and Bernard and Bevan and Candace and Cecile and Charles and David and Eric and the other David and Felicia and Iantha and Jeanette. So there's lots of people that would help you, but maybe the easiest way, if you were not referred by one of them, is to come to chapmanloanprogram.org, click here, and we can plug you in. But remember that there were requirements for that company vehicle, right? So the requirements were stated here, but that's great because that's exactly what we provide here. So it's not a problem, but there's the answer, I guess. Ken's asking kind of the same that was asked before about moving up. Before the question was about what if you have an automobile? I think David asked that. If you have a personal automobile that you want to move to business, can we do that? Yes. And now Ken's asking, what if you have land that you want to move from personal to business? And the answer is yes, we can do that as well. It's just keep in mind that there's not some game to it. We're transferring the title from you as a person to your business, and we're transferring financing from you as a person to your business. It's no different than your business buying land from someone else. It's just, it happens to be buying from you. Trevor's following up on the timeline question. From the time they sign up, how soon could we get a company vehicle? Okay. So from the time that a client signs up, we know that this is normally a 30 to 60 day process. But Trevor's question isn't to get all the way through this, it's just to get to this point. I would say safely 3 to 7 days from the time they enroll, we should be ready to get their business automobile. So let's go with a week to be conservative. All right, let's see. Ernestina says she's filled that out already. Okay, well, Ernestina, yeah, if you're a client, then be sure that you're communicating with our support team, and we should be having weekly calls with you and each of our clients to make sure that we're supporting them properly. So while this format is good for communicating with groups, you have our phone number, our main number, which is answered live Mondays through Fridays. And then, of course, our email is another way to reach us. We'll end up getting you our Calendly link, and we like to schedule calls so that way we're both available. All right, so who else has questions? Because I guess at the end of this, the goal is to motivate you, right? I'm not trying to manipulate you, but I'd like to motivate you, because if you have signed up to be a distribution partner, it sure would be great if we were out helping people and you making money, right? Otherwise, we're just kind of wasting time here. So if you've signed up as a distribution partner, we should have onboarded you. We should have provided you a number of resources. Those resources would have included an editable proposal, an editable press release, an editable agreement for client enrollment, editable version of the PowerPoint presentation called 10 Mistakes. You should have a lot of those resources. If you don't, again, you need to let us know so we can fix that problem. Then we're going to work with you to modify, to edit the client agreement. So if we click on here, you'll see what people get. If on our website they click on, it'll open up a new tab for form stack. It'll pop up a screen, and then screen went blank. People initial off, and then they're able to enroll. But if you're a distribution partner, normally you're not going to be referring them to us. You're going to be getting them under your contract, which gives you the ability to determine your rates. So one of the first things that you would do is take the editable agreement that we provide to you and put your information on instead of ours. Like at the bottom here, it has our information. Well, you don't want it to have our information. You want it to have yours, so you can get clients under contract and you control the pricing. If you're one of our distribution partners, you have the option. You can charge a performance fee based upon the amount of the capital raised, or not. And if you do, you choose the amount. Some of you are doing 6%. Some of you are going with 12, some 19%. Some of you have gone as high as 15%, but those are the choices you have. So the key is we need to make sure that you're onboarded. If you don't feel like you are, you need help, then of course, call us or email us. All right. Bevan's asking where to find clients. Well, we had a training on BNI, and we encouraged all of you to either join BNI or at least go visit it. So Bevan, that would be my first answer, because BNI is a networking model where you're meeting each week in person or online with bankers, with accountants, with business coaches. All these people can be referring to you. So the first thing I'd recommend doing for any of you that don't have enough prospects would be to consider BNI. And then also we had a conversation about becoming a state director and then developing affinity relationships. Affinity relationships, Bevan, are where we go to primarily vo-tech schools. So cosmetology schools, massage schools, welding schools, truck driving schools are great examples. And so then we do a revenue share with those schools. They invite you, Bevan, to come in and teach their current students about the 10 mistakes, which again, if you're not familiar with it, it's right here. And then also they'll create a conduit for you to get in front of their alumni, their graduates. So Bevan's question was, where do I find clients? Two best strategies, one of which would be BNI, and then the other of which would be the affinity relationships. But in general, focus on teaching. We don't need to focus on selling. If you go out and teach the curriculum called the 10 mistakes, which we should have provided you an editable version of the PowerPoint already, and there is a on-demand version that you can listen to here. Going out and teaching this, whether it be in person or online, is incredibly valuable. We average 85 to 87% of the people that we teach will enroll. Trevor's asking about timelines. So definitely, we need to have weekly calls with all of you to make sure that every client is being processed properly and in a timely fashion, and we're all on the same page. So those weekly one-on-ones with each of our branch offices is very important. But you can also email us and call us. Inevitably, what happens is we get busier and busier. The communication is more and more important that we have with each of you to make sure that we're on top of where we're at with clients. All right, we're about to the bottom of the hour, so let's just do a quick of the half an hour we have time together. So let's just do a quick summary. So ChapmanLoanProgram.org is obviously our resource site. If you are a current distribution partner, thank you for being one. If you're not, you can become one here. If you are one, then you have expectations, right? That you're going to go out and educate and enroll clients and earn adult income. So we take our responsibility seriously. We're here to support, train, and assist you, but we need you to do what you promised to do, which is to enroll at least 2 clients a week. If you're not enrolling at least 2 clients a week, then you're breaching your agreement. You're not doing what you promised. So you need to get with us so we can figure out how do we fix that. Also, at the beginning of the call, we spent some time talking about our 2024 banking updates. We transparently shared with you our key banking partners, and this list could grow or evolve throughout the course of the year, as well as our key auto financing partners. And what makes this important is this isn't just a random list of banks. These are banks and automobile lenders that have agreed to work with our clients and have provided us their underwriting criteria. And so we looked at Ally car financing as an example, where we can get a company car with no personal guarantee. We went through specifically what Ally has told us they require, and we have this data set on all of the lenders. Anything that I can help with any of you, any other assistance that anyone needs before we wrap up today? We may be traveling tomorrow. We'll see the specifics. We may not have a Zoom tomorrow, but I'll let you know in advance if we don't. But the key is to go execute, to go help people, go teach someone. If you don't have anyone to teach, go to a BNI meeting and meet some people that can refer to you. You need to be active. That's what you bring to the table, right? That's your portion. We split the revenue 50-50. We do all the work, but your job is to go out and generate the client relationships and bring them in. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to generate income, and you're not really fulfilling what your promise is. So let us know what you need from us. You know how to reach us. Again, phone and email, and we'll see you back here soon. Have a great day and a great week, everyone.